What is good, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. This one breaks down what's going on with NIO stock and what you should be watching for going forward. I'm also going to talk about some big news that just came out for NIO as we're getting some very positive light from the media right now. And NIO is actually up about 4.5% despite the fact that the market sank at the very end of the day. And why NIO is looking quite prime so far. Before I break things down about all this information, though, I have to mention a couple of things real quick. Firstly, I am not a financial planner, so take none of this as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link, which is down below in the description. If you sign up for Webull and deposit any amount of money into the account, you are guaranteed up to 12 free stocks. The offer ends very soon. Check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. NIO is up 4.5% once again, holding up a lot nicer than the overall market. And NIO is starting to gain some relative strength. Now, even though it's good to see NIO holding up like this, I do have to mention that NIO does have a tendency of being affected by the market. So if you look right over here at the price comparison between NIO and SPY, you could see how they did tend to run very similarly for the last couple of months. And it wasn't until about, I would say, like the end of March when NIO started to underperform because of the fact that their delivery started to slow down in April and May. It's also because of other negative headlines that were coming out for NIO. So NIO really started to slow down around like the April period after those bad deliveries, and then also in May. But then after the June numbers just came out, that's when NIO started to do a little bit better. And now NIO is starting to perform a little bit better than before. But if you compare it to like the QQQ right over here, so we could pull up the QQQ, you could see the QQQ was pushing up. NIO came up with this. So basically the blue line right here would be the QQQ, and the white one is NIO. So once again, they came up together. NIO came down with the QQQ. Then NIO really outperformed it back in September of 2022. Then NIO started sinking very hard as the market tanked. Remember during the October period when we got some very hot CPI numbers and there was lots of fear involving the current situations and gas prices and etc. During that crash, we saw the entire market tank, including NIO. That's what really played a big role in dragging NIO down from the 22 level all the way down to like the 10s. There was also negative news associated with what was going on in China at the time and other factors that played a big role. Then NIO started to perform very well and started pushing up with the triple Q. You could see it right over here. Then they came down together. They pushed up together. NIO was performing very well like it. They came down together and then they came up together finally. And it wasn't until around this we had a very sideways like April period as we had pushed mid-April. They were basically moving together at that time, right? And it wasn't until we got close to like May, and that was like near the time when NIO's numbers came out for April. That's when things went worse. We started to see NIO really underperform compared to the NASDAQ. You could see NIO has been like downtrending, trading sideways, while the triple Q was pumping. And if NIO gave us strong numbers, NIO would have pumped with the triple Q a lot more. And NIO so far didn't really do that until the latest report that just came out just a couple of days ago. So for now, this tells us something very important. Basically, NIO has deliveries that come out every so often, and those deliveries play a big role in whether or not NIO will perform well or not. Those are some of the most important factors for the share price, and we're finally starting to see some good numbers like right here. NIO gave us their first 10,000 delivery month, obviously, on just about last week. They reported this for June. NIO is also telling us that we should be expecting strong deliveries for the remainder of the year, and things should get stronger, especially as we approach the end of this year. So if that's the case for NIO, we could be anticipating, based off this historical price action, that NIO is going to start doing a lot better moving forward. But you also have to remember that the market has an effect on NIO simultaneously. So if the market does start cooling off a bit, this could slow NIO down a bit, at least to some degree. And then big tech earnings are going to play a big role in dictating whether or not this continues. But for the time being, I just want to add that we're seeing another increase in the short interest on NIO. So we're at the highest level we've seen in many, many weeks since like the very beginning of June. We saw over 12.955 million NIO shares shorted just a couple of days ago. And then as of recent went down to about 11 million, but that's still more than 10 million shares shorted. Compare this to this like April period, and we're only seeing just a few, million shares shorted on a daily basis. But also notice that when NIO started to underperform around like the second half of April going into May, we saw a lot of shorting going on NIO during this period. So be a little bit careful. The shorting is starting to go up on NIO. This could cause a slowdown in the share price, so we have to be very careful. Now, some headlines are coming out saying that NIO is up 29% in June, and has a lot of potential for another bull run. Is that possible? It is possible, but we have to be very careful with claims like this because, once again, I don't always trust these articles. Because why is it that the short interest of NIO is going up, and then these articles are saying a bull run is coming, it's coming? Something's kind of suspicious here. Could they be trying to get everyone to start buying into NIO so that they could sell their shares and they start shorting it down just a bit? That's a possibility. So far, it hasn't really happened as NIO is green, it's holding up. But I'm just warning everyone to be a little bit careful because of how the market dictates NIO. And also because over the next couple of weeks, starting within 2 weeks, in less than 2 weeks, we have Tesla's earnings, right? And as Tesla approaches its earnings date, yes, Tesla may pump. Maybe that's going to help NIO with the consumer discretionaries. But the problem is, if earnings are not that strong from big tech, the whole market may slow down. If earnings are strong from big tech, the entire market may start to pump more. And that could help NIO pump as well. So I want to just say that yes, NIO could run on its own. There's a good chance NIO is going to try to outperform the market, maybe try to hold up these levels. But there is a degree of NIO getting affected by the overall market. Just like how we saw NIO start to tank with the QQQ and also with the NASDAQ and, SPY and etc. Right over here, SPX, the entire market was tanking. That's when NIO started tanking too. Very similar timings prevailed. So what do I see for NIO? For now, it's holding up. If we could get above this $10 resistance and break below 10.1, we could fill this gap up to about 10.25. There could be one more pop coming from NIO. But as the market is slowing, we saw some weakness today as SPY came down to like 438 at the very end, getting a bloody sell-off at the end of the day. But the news that came out didn't really affect this. I didn't really see news affect this. This had more to do with just traders and technicals. So it tried to fill this gap up here and made an attempt to do so. And what they did is they got a lot of retail to start buying in like crazy, thinking the gap was going to get filled. And then they tricked them and they rug pulled the market, tricking so many buyers. It was pretty insane how they did this. So that tells us, with all this selling pressure, I mean, there is a chance the market could slow down a little bit next week. There is a possibility. But just to be safe, what I'm thinking is it may start to range trade a bit, and then we have CPI coming out, I think, on Wednesday. On Wednesday, we have CPI coming out on, I think it's either Tuesday or Wednesday. I think it's Wednesday. On Wednesday, it should be coming out, and that's going to dictate how the market moves. So just be ready for that. Also for Tesla, this thing is starting to look a little bit weaker. You can see Tesla continue to drop today, and it failed to get a break. And I wanted to break and fill this gap. It failed to do so, got another rejection. Now we're going to be watching the 50 EMA on the 1 hour time frame. Could Tesla hold 270? If it breaks below it, is it going to have downside? If not, it could try to bounce, but we're just going to be watching that, especially for next week. Same thing with the triple Q. It hasn't fully filled this gap down here, and this gap will take it all the way down to 363 if it does break down. It's looking a little bit weaker. There's a possible head and shoulders right here, and also some weakness in the chart. If I bring up the extended hours on this thing, there's a possible, you could say there's a head and shoulders. It's also like a test of the 200 EMA on the 1 hour time frame. If that breaks down, I'd be very careful. But the question is, what about this inverse head and shoulders that was forming? That's another possibility. Like, once again, it's very mixed looking technicals, but I'd be very careful if you just sell off that happened today. We'll see what happens with the news going into next week, and we also have CPI coming out. So we have to be very careful. Anyways, for NIO failed to hold above like the $10 area and didn't close above that. But overall, it's not looking that bad. The question is, will NIO continue to push up to fill this gap up to like the 10.29 area? Or is NIO going to get another rejection? Either one of these possibilities are likely. I'm not seeing a clear direction just yet. And I think that the overall market may dictate NIO. So we need to see if it could hold above this 50 EMA, above this 9.84 area. If it manages to hold above this, it could try to bounce and fill the gap. If it fails, if it breaks below this, I'm going to be watching a big move to the downside to 9.5. Now, the whole market could affect it, so just be very careful. And I'll talk more about what is likely going to happen on Sunday to NIO. But until then, I just broke down what happened today. I'll see you guys very soon for the next video. Thank you for listening. NIO to the moon as the long term is still incredibly bright. And peace out.